So, on that note, welcome everybody who's in the room and welcome everybody who's watching on live stream. And Peter will put the link in. So, if you do watch on live stream and you want to join us in the room, feel free to come in at any time. The link should be in the comments. So, without further ado, tonight's topic is advanced repertoire suggestions for extra lists or own choice for grade 7 to 8 level of pieces. So, let's hand it over to Mr. Norton.
Thank you. So I'm sharing my screen now so you can actually see what I'm seeing. And here we go. Wait a minute. So I'm looking at grades 7 and 8 own choice suggestions. But, oh, and that's my new publicity photo, by the way. So it does look roughly like I look like as well, which is quite handy. I'm talking about grades 7 to 8, but I'm slightly kind of going to the easy end at first because I'm using some of the pieces which are on the Royal Conservatory syllabus, which is the Canadian equivalent of the ABRSM, and they have 10 grades. So I suddenly realized that their grade 7 and 8 are probably grade 6, 7 sort of thing. They're a little bit easier, but so I'm on the fringes of 6 as well for this little presentation today. So grade 7, and the first thing I'd like to talk about is a piece called Nefertiti Blues, and this is from Connections 7. The Connections books, by the way, are available in Australia from Hal Leonard, if you're in Australia, but anywhere else in the world they're available from 80 Days Publishing, which is my own company. So you just look up 80dayspublishing.com and search for piano, and you'll find Connections 1 to 10. It's actually 10 volumes altogether. So Nefertiti Blues looks like this. Although it doesn't look that hard, it actually is quite tricky in terms of articulation. And what I thought I'd do is play you the piece first with you looking at the music. And I'm playing it with a backing track as well, because one of the bonus things about this particular series, and indeed about microjazz as well, is that if you learn the piece, there are actually tracks available which accompany them all online now. And that means that if students learn them, they can actually get a little bit of an insight into, and it's like having a concerto accompaniment, you might say, but it's actually a band accompaniment. So here's Nefertiti Blues. Now, why is it called Nefertiti Blues? That's the first question people often ask me, and you'll be pleased to hear it's a blues with a hint of Egyptian styling. And then I put in my notes here, who am I kidding? It's just a blues, but it's quite fun. The sort of strutting kind of style of the piece suggests some kind of imperious figure. This is an enormously popular piece around the world, and it's used in a number of examples. Oh, with a hint of Bach. Um,
Sorry.
it's a very popular piece with students when it's on examination boards, which is on a number of them at the moment. Connections is still slightly new to the associated board, but they're gradually becoming aware of its existence because it's a very big series. What kind of style is this piece in? It's an R&B style, so it's got very jazzy left-hand voicing. The are all very idiomatic jazz voicings, and there's a lot of bluesy licks and so on. So children do love playing this, and I think at about grade 6, 7 level, this is a very fun piece to consider as an optional extra piece for your own choice. Just quickly mentioning some of the things about it. It's in C major 4/4. And the main melody is 16 bars long, so it's not a typical blues. It's actually 4 bars longer than a blues, which is usually 12. And it's repeated with the syncopated left end. And the last 2 bars are repeated before an exciting syncopated ending. When you're learning a piece like this, articulation is incredibly specific. And I've got the book here on my piano here, and I'm just opening up at the piece and looking at the articulation. The opening bar that's a 3-bar phrase, and then a 2-bar phrase with the grace note, and then another little 3 bars. So the total phrasing, and then a long phrase, and then staccato, and then. So you can see there's a lot of detail in the articulation. And for students learning a piece, it's very good practice to learn to look at the articulation of a piece and play grace notes and accents and all that sort of thing. So it's got a lot of detail in it, which is great. Playing grace notes with the main note, I've mentioned this a number of times in my previous talks, and that is I go not, but I hit the note at the same time and let the first one go. So not making too much of the grace note in terms of robbing time. There's a lot of fingering marked in this piece, and it's always there for a reason. Thumb under indications, position changes using the strongest fingers, and it's for people doing examinations. It's quite helpful, I think, to look closely at the fingering. Dynamics, these are very general. It starts off mezzo forte and goes louder, and then there's a very dramatic crescendo from MF to FF at the end. So generally, it's an MF and forte piece. And the backing track is available. Now, this you might be interested to know about. This is on SuperScore. Now, SuperScore is on the iPad, and that gives you incredible flexibility and turns your page as well. And it has audio built into it, and you can turn the iPad on its side, and it redraws the music in landscape and so on. But also, you can play the piece with any part missing, so you can actually remix the backing track and have just left hand or right hand. So. And there's a direct link in the worksheet for Connection 7 tracks, which are all free. And you go there, and it's got the entire level at 2 speeds, with and without piano. So for students practicing the piece, they've actually got a track, which actually is not just up to speed, but actually is slow as well. So I'd just like to mention briefly here the chords used in this piece. If you look, I'm going to play them, and you can see them on screen. C9, F13, G7, and C7. So there's not that many chords. So I've found that students who are starting to get interested in chords, it's nice to actually have something which you can talk about the chords used in the piece, and they're not too hard to play, and there aren't too many of them. And here's the chord chart using only those chords. So that's what it looks like. And that's in your worksheet. So if you download the free backing track with that URL, you can actually play those chords. So here's me playing the chords. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but you get the idea. And so on. So then what I suggest with students, if you're trying to do this piece, which is quite fun. Oops, I've muted myself. I'll just try and unmute that. Or have I? Can you still hear me, Sarah? Yes, you can, I'm sure. So use the chord chart. Yeah, use the chord chart and play your own chord rhythms. So I'm just going to demonstrate that. This is a very simple way of doing this. And so on. So that's a lot of fun, and the chord charts again, not too hard to play, but very idiomatically jazz, if you like, and R&B. And then use the C blues scale and improvise freely at first with the track. And there's various things you can do. I mean, obviously, make up a 2-bar idea and repeat it up an octave. What I've discovered with students is that if you get them to do a 2-bar idea, they very rarely at first can repeat their own idea. Getting used to the idea of remembering what your idea sounded like is a great starting point for improvisation as well. Make up a 2-bar idea and answer it. and so on, and play more than one note. So I'm using pedal notes there, so I'm playing the root of the chord above the tune. And the other thing, which is quite fun, is try a longer idea. And play continuous eighth notes. Grace notes and pedal notes. So there's lots of things you can do with the piece with just using that little scale as well. So that's called Nefertiti Blues. It's from Connection 7. And as I said, it's a very popular piece for examination purposes across the world already, but it might be one you haven't come across before. Now we're looking at a piece which is even more popular. This is also from Connection 7, and it's called Fantasy Bossa. And it's not a perfect performance, so I think it's a very nice, almost a heartfelt performance from a student of this piece. I'm just going to play you a little bit of this performance of Fantasy Bossa by a student. Isn't that lovely? Now, that is almost never played badly by students. They always seem to get what the style is like. It's called Fantasy Bossa because it's in 4/4 but keeps going off in unexpected tangents and goes into 3/4 quite a bit of the time as well. So it's kind of an asymmetrical bossa nova, if you like. And the piece is basically in a bossa nova style. This again has a backing track available in the same free download of the entire level from Connection 7. It's an F major, I believe, yes, 4/4, and the main melody is an unusual length. You can probably tell from the little performance here, it's a 9-bar phrase, and then another idea is introduced, and the theme is repeated this time over 13 bars. So the whole thing is really asymmetrical, if you like. And then there's a third version of the theme before a 3/4 idea. Go this idea, and so on. And then a final statement of the theme which plays around with various ideas before a final unexpectedly quiet ending. And he did a lovely job of that. So it's a good little test for students, again, of interpretation, if you might say. Now, when you're learning a piece like this, there's a whole lot of different things going on. Articulation is largely connected with legato playing. It's a very song-like melody that goes for the whole piece. So you almost have to think of the piece as one long melody. And there's some soft staccato chords and two-note scissors, but mostly this needs very much cantabile playing and also legato pedaling. Fingering, usually it's getting your hand into a position to play the next phrase smoothly, but it's all there for good reasons and it's very useful for examination preparation. Dynamics, this starts off gently, then each paragraph steps up a notch. Mezzo forte, then forte, dropping back, then to piano for the build-up. It keeps building in paragraphs before the long descent at the end to final pianissimo. So interpretation-wise, it's got lots of interest, I think. And again, I've given you the direct link for the Connection 7 tracks which this has got, and you'll be able to hear a bit of the track for this in a moment, I believe. So let's just look at that. The chords used in this piece, there are lots of them, and I'll just show you some of them. So F major 7, B flat over F, E minor 7 flat 5, A7, D minor 7, D minor 6, B flat major 7 over C, straight C major, F add 9, B flat over C, and so I'm just going to play these chords so you can hear me playing them. So you can hear it's a very distinctive flavour. These are you might kind of say Latin jazz chords, if you like, but it's a rich array of chords, none hard to play. And then if you look at those in a chord chart, here's just the first 9 bars. So I'm going to play the first 9 bars as a chord chart. Then these pushes. One, two, three, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So again, what you can do is play the first 9 bars and invent your own rhythms. So I'm going to do I did arpeggiation downwards for that last chord, which was rather nice, and then try singing melodies above them, above the chords. So it's just a really nice piece to kind of play around with the style. The next one I'm going on to is jazz preludes, but before I do that, I'm going to go out of the share. Let's have a look. Stop share. Here we go. So I can see you all. Not see you all, but you can. I can see. I can see some of you anyway. But what I'm going to just mention to you is the books that I've just mentioned. That's Collection 7. I'm holding the book up there. That's what it looks like, and that's Connections 8, which looks like that. Obviously got a big 8. But what I haven't mentioned, which are probably even more relevant, I'm just going to mention that they exist, is Connections 9 and 10. Now these really are grade 8 and beyond, so they're worth having a look at as well. And these are all on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel. You just look for my name and you'll find Connections 9 and 10. The whole of 9 and 10 are there on video. So I'm not playing any of these today, but I did want to mention that they exist. So going back to screen share again, and jazz preludes. Now, rock preludes has a piece on grade 8 on the ABRSM, that's Jingo, and Latin preludes has a piece on grade 7, I think, which is Pop Bossa. So jazz preludes is another book of preludes, which are all at that same kind of level, grade 7, 8. And this is a piece called Tie Break. And again, this superficially doesn't look too hard to play, but in fact, it has its own tricky moments. Here's what it sounds like. again, very popular piece on examination boards where it is used. And I've heard that played very well by students all around the world. What's with the name? Now, for me, it's a tennis term where there are players getting to 5-5-1 players to win the next two games. It's a strutting, confident piece, and perhaps some of the determined air that might necessarily be a winner. Isn't that rather fanciful? But maybe that's kind of why I call it that. This is a hard driving boogie with snare drum and 2 and 4 and 16th note syncopations, like do 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 do, where you've got actually 16th note syncopation rather than 8th. It has the characteristic left hand, which is not too hard to play, but once you get the right hand in, of course, it starts to become more like about a grade 7 piece. It's in D major 4/4. It's a classic 12 bar. The main theme is 12 bars long, so that's repeated up an octave. Then there's a new idea stood over the same 12 bar sequence before a final coda. So it is basically 3 times through a 12 bar sequence. Tips for learning this piece: articulation. Most of the right hand is legato, with longer phrases contrast with chords and short phrases. Grace notes played at the same time. Look closely at the staccato markings. And staccato, I like the idea of dropping and bouncing off the bottom of the key and off the key in that kind of way, but keeping staccatos from being too spiky. Fingering, there's very little fingering marked, just a bit of position change in the right hand. Dynamics, don't start this piece too loud. There are small crescendos and diminuendos. Forte with the second statement, and the B section even louder. It's certainly very determined sounding. It does get to double forte and it works its way all the way down to piano at the end, which I often do. The backing track is really great to play with, and in fact there's a very good performance which I thought you might like to see, which is by a young player with the backing track, and it's a very cool performance as well. He never shows his face, he just shows his hands, but I think you'll agree there's something rather kind of compelling about this performance by a young teenage boy of Tie Break from the Jazz Preludes. Wonderful. What I particularly like is the way he takes his right hand off the keyboard altogether between phrases. Very relaxed performance there, and he's playing very well with the track. Chords used in this piece, by the way, just to let you know, in case you're interested in this notion of following up, the chords are very simple: G7, G7, and A7. But how they're strung together is what makes the chord chart. And again, in your worksheet, which you can download from here, I believe, you've got a little chord chart which works with the backing track. Now, when you're improvising, try your own chord in it, but the backing track is amazingly funky. Like, this is what it sounds like, the backing track. So you can tell that's a lot of fun to play and not that hard to play either. And of course, you can use your own chord rhythms as well. So and so on. So it's just very good for practice for getting to know a style and playing inside it. So that's again a bonus with all this. Now, one thing I need to tell you is that all of my books, pretty much all of my books from Boozy and Hawks, which this is from, have been reissued with new covers and with all the audio now on every digital platform. So you don't have to rely on a CD anymore with a book. You can actually get it from Spotify, from iTunes, and so on. And Jazz Preludes, which this is from, is actually one of the books. If you look on Spotify, for instance, you'll find my name immediately, and you'll find a whole array of new covers for microjazz and for the preludes and so on. And all the backing tracks are sitting there as well as solo performances. So you can say to the student, just go and have a listen and see if you like the sound of this piece or that. You've got the backing track with the piano, you've got the backing track without the piano, you've got the solo piano, as I said, so there's lots of different versions. This is one where you can use the D blues scale, and again, making up a two-bar idea, and answering with a different one, playing more than one note, longer ideas, and continuous eighth notes, grace notes, and pedal notes. So again, I got those quick notes on the sort of things you can mess around with the scale. Now, what I wanted to mention here was not only is everything being reissued with new covers, there are actually two new microjazz books, and Microjazz Collection 5, which is the second of them, because the two new ones are 4 and 5, is grades 7 to 8. And I just wanted to show you one example. I'm not going to say anything about it particularly, but show you what the piece looks like and sounds like. But this is out now, and it's only just out. And you can look for this under ChristopherNorton.com or Boozy.com. But it'll be widely available now, I suspect. And it's brand new. It's called, I put grade with an FE, which is rather strange spelling, but don't worry about that. And this is a piece called Frankly Speaking, which I really like. And if you have a look at the detail of it, this is quite tricky. I would say this is probably heading for grade 8. And this is what this piece sounds like with the track. Now we're going on to the wilds of grade 8, although the piece I just played you, as I said, probably is grade 8 as well. And that's Connections, sorry, not Connections, that's Microjazz Collection 5, which is that piece is from. By the way, but before I go on to grade 8, all of the Microjazz Collection 4 and 5, which is new, are on YouTube. I've actually done them onto my YouTube channel, so the entire 2 new books are there for you to have a listen to. So what you can do is just click up Christopher Norton, look for Microjazz Collection 4, and you'll find the entire album plays continuously if you don't stop it. So you can actually hear the whole of 4 and the whole of 5 on YouTube as well, and on all the digital platforms for audio. Now Jane's song is a grade 8 piece, which is from Connections 8, And this is the most popular piece I've written in this huge series. And this is what it looks like, and this is what it sounds like. Now that's a really nice solo piano piece as well, and I've heard lovely performances by that from students all over the place, and they always love it. It's a little bit Elton John, if anything, the kind of style of it. Now, what was the name? This is rather funny, actually. I had nearly 200 pieces to write for the Connection series when it first came out. I was running out of ideas for names. Jane was the name of the organizer for the promotional tour in North America, so named after her. And after that, everybody keeps saying to me, "Who is Jane?" And of course, I said she was the tour organizer. She means nothing, but I had to find a name, so that's the reason for that. What style is this piece in? It's a pop ballad in the vein of Daniel by Elton John, and Daniel was one of his tour organizations back in the day, I suspect, as well. A little joke there, which you can laugh at later. Key E major, which is quite interesting. It's in 4/4, and it's a straightforward ABA structure. You can hear there's in a middle section. One thing which I was rather amused by, this piece is a big fixture of the Royal Conservatory syllabus in Canada, and they did a promotional video for it from the Royal Conservatory where somebody played the piece. It changes from 4 sharps to 1 sharp in the middle, and they didn't realize, so they actually played the middle section still with 4 sharps. So that was an interesting moment for me to think, don't think that's what the piece sounds like in the middle there. Learning the piece, this is a very legato cantabile piece with lots of pedal and a flowing left-hand accompaniment much of the time. Each phrase needs to be beautifully shaped, and the whole piece needs to be shaped like a long song as well. Fingering is plentiful and useful. Position changes, strong fingers, all the fingering is worth checking out on this one. And dynamics, there's an echo effect in the first 4 bars. So you actually get this softer. So you've already got some nice little dynamic effects there, but your performance will be very expressive if you look at the dynamics very carefully for this one. And the backing track is also on Superscore. By the way, all of Connections is on Superscore, and so is Microjazz Collections 4. No, they're not yet, but there are various Microjazz volumes which are on Superscore, but that's again on the iPad. That's really worth looking at. It's free download, and then you basically purchase the books inside it. But it's a very interesting platform for much of my material, but it's all of Connections is on that. Chords used in this one, this is interesting. If you look at those there, these are really pop chords. E major, which is fine. A with the B in it, F sharp minor 7, B add 9, and then this lovely chord, G sharp 7 sus4, G sharp 7, and C sharp minor 9. So it's quite kind of pop, if you like, and I think, again, it's useful for students who want to play that kind of style to have a piece as an own choice, which is in this kind of style. Chord chart for this, there it is there. And in fact, if you play this with the backing track only playing, which is a free download again, so it gets those nice pushes as well. And in improvising, you can use the printed music and arpeggio to elaborate, so you're comping the part. In other words, play the music, but actually kind of make the elaboration and the arpeggiation up yourself slightly. So now this is an interesting one. I'm now going to a book called Eastern Preludes. This is again at the same level as rock preludes and Latin preludes and jazz preludes, but this is all using melodies from across the eastern part of the world, like from Singapore, Malaysia, China, India, and so on. And the piece which I've selected is called Bahe Kubo, and this is the first piece. No, it's the second piece in the book. Again, this is probably grade 8, I would think. It's quite sophisticated, and this is quite interesting because we didn't do any backing tracks for these books. It just didn't seem like quite right. So what we've got is wonderful concert performances. These are all again on all digital platforms. And this is a concert performance by a British pianist called Ian Farrington, who was, I just can't fault him. Every time he came and played my pieces for me, I said, "You've nailed it." And this is him playing Bahe Kubo, which is a folk song from the Philippines. I think you'll agree that's a wonderful performance of that as well. So that's a very sophisticated piece. The name is a Filipino children's song about a nipa hut, a small cube-shaped building constructed from nipa or palm leaves and bamboo. And the words describe the wide variety of foods which were traditionally grown in the earth surrounding the hut. So it's a real folk song. It's lovely. The style of the piece, original as a folk style, but the style I've surrounded with is framed as like a soulful jazz ballad. And it's in the key of C, and it goes nicely into A major in the middle, and it's in 4/4, so it's fairly straightforward. And the opening idea, which is mine, leads to the main theme. The main theme being the theme's repeated in the left hand, and at the end of that, the opening theme comes back, and then it goes to more and more distant keys, and the theme eventually comes back in an ethereal A major. And it finds its way back to C. It's like a fantasy using the folk song like a dream. It's one of my favorite pieces, even though I wrote it. So learning the piece needs a beautiful sound at all times. Listen to the recording by Ian Farrington on all digital platforms, and beautiful legato playing allied to immaculate pedaling. Articulation legato throughout, cantabile throughout. Fingering, there's lots of useful fingering in the music, keeping your position changes smooth and keeping your hand in the best position, playing legato. And dynamics starts off very softly and it ends pianissimo. So there's lots of quiet dynamics in this piece as well, which is lovely. And there are too many chords to list, but the chief thing to notice is the extensive use of inversions and creating jazz-influenced sounds. Some examples from the beginning. Look at this. So I'm just going. This is jazz inversions. B flat major 7 with a C bass, C6, A flat major 7 over C, and D minor 7. So these are some of the left-hand chords with the bass notes missing, so they create a very jazzy and floating effect. Improvising, take the original melody and try your own fantasy using as a starting point. There's the original melody, which is in your worksheet, and it's quite fun to actually do your own fantasy on it, if you like, however simple. Now, this is a new book to most of you, I think. This is definitely kind of grade 7, 8, and this is from 80 Days Publishing, which is my own publishing venture, called Bright and Bluesy. These were written, believe it or not, in 1976, so I was 23 years old when I wrote these, so these go way back, and I've had them in my archives ever since, thinking I must put these out somewhere, and I finally have. And the piece which I wanted to show is called Taking It in Stride, which is a really charming piece, and again, quite tricky. Now, what's the name of this? This is a stride piano style. Broadly speaking, it's a style where the pianist plays a note on beats 1 and 3 and a chord on beats 2 and 4. The piece does that at a certain point. This title is making a play on words. To take things in stride is to deal with something calmly as well. So it kind of it's relaxed, but has quite a lot of kind of confidence about it as well. What style is this in? It's a little bit in stride style, but mostly it's in a jazzy swing piano style with lots of left-hand chord inversions, rootless voicings, which I mentioned before. It's in C major 4/4, which is fine. Structure 8 bars plus a pickup followed by idea 2 8 bars, leading to idea 1 done in stride style. Then idea 2 up an octave, finally a reference to idea 1. So it keeps bouncing between two different ideas. Tips for learning this: the right hand phrases are all quite short and should always be shaped well. Grace notes with the main note. Keep double grace notes very light and quick. Play section 2 with lots of arm weight. Articulation, there's quite a variety. Do it accurately and suavely. Pedal the temples I put, which is a strange expression. Templates, I think I mean. Do I mean templates either? No, I'm not quite sure. But you have to basically pedal the accents. I'm not quite. You'll have to sort of interpret that later. There are mini glissandos. Make them very light. And fingering is all there for a reason. Look at each fingering marked. Chords used in this. Now these are quite interesting. G13, C9, B flat 13, F9, and F13, and C7 sharp 9. So again, not hard to play, but really rich in effect. And the chord chart for the first 16 bars looks like that. So just go back on that so you can see that. And you can see this is not just chords, it actually has specific rhythms as well. If I play this for you. 1, 2, 3, 4. they're quite interesting chords. Again, that's on your worksheet, so it'll be fun for some students who like to play this kind of style. They can play around with the chords as well. Improvising using the C blues scale and the backing track, because there is a backing track available for this as well. This again, I think, is on YouTube, so you can actually hear all the pieces on YouTube as well. Now, here's where things are available from. I've highlighted Micro Jazz Collection 5 there, but you've got Collection 7, Collections 8, Jazz Preludes, Eastern Preludes, and the Micro Jazz Collection 5. So the top ones are available from 80dayspublishing.com. You just look up that website, you'll discover all the music there, including piano, piano duet, piano trios, even a piece for piano, 2 pianos, 8 hands, as well as guitar, harp, and vocal things, all sorts of things, but mostly centered around my music, with a few other composers thrown in as well. And then Boozy and Hawks and Brighton Bluesy, by the way, is also available from 80 Days. I mentioned that at the end there. And ChristopherNorton.com or Boozy.com are where you get the Jazz Preludes, the Eastern Preludes, and the Micro Jazz new collections. And that's it. So I'm coming out of my sharing of screen here and saying hello to Sarah.
There is a question in the chat, and it's from Suna, and she was asking, now that I can't see the chat, where did it go? She said, for these, are there ensemble parts as well?
Ensemble parts. No, that's an interesting point. I mean, the ensemble parts is the backing tracks, if you like. The thing about the backing tracks, Superscore, for instance, has available all the MIDI files of the pieces. Now, when I talk about that, that's all the connections, for instance, and you can actually find your ensemble parts inside those, which you can bring up into Sibelius or whatever and print out. So there are ensemble parts in existence, if you like, but I haven't necessarily tried to make ensemble books out of them yet.
So it's a little bit of a maze to get them, but you can get them.
Yeah, but you can get them, and you can always come back to me as well on Facebook, Christopher Norton Composer, and say we'd like to do such and such a piece with ensemble. By the way, one thing which is rather interesting, I've got a very good pianist in the north of England called Tegan Addison, which is about 14 years old. She did the Jingo from Rock Preludes, which is obviously on the ABRSM syllabus, and she didn't just do it; she did it with piano, bass, and drums with live players. And they'd done it from the MIDI parts. In other words, they printed the parts off and played the parts very, very well. Because the thing which is interesting about my work, particularly Micro Jazz and the connections books, is the backing tracks are done by wonderful musicians, and they're all parts which are playable on the actual instrument. In other words, they did them in MIDI initially, but the guy I worked with in particular, he did the drums and the bass parts and the guitar parts. He was equally good at playing those instruments, so he plays exactly what you would play. So you're getting a very idiomatic version of each style, if you like, and she proved that you can actually explode the pieces and do them, and that's an interesting case because it's a grade 8 ABRSM piece which she used and did a great job. If you look on YouTube for Jingo, you may find that video, but there's more than one example of people playing my pieces as ensembles as well.
Oh, well, on that, does anyone else have a question before we call it a night? For those in New Zealand, it's very late.
Is there somebody from New Zealand on? Is there somebody from New Zealand on the
Yes,
list of
yes,
people
we
here?
have someone from New Zealand here, so that's very late, and Sydney people are later than me, so it's lovely
Yeah.
that everyone could stay up. But any last questions before we say good night or good morning?
Anyway, just bear in mind that connections 7, 8, 9, and 10 are really what's relevant to those grades there. And the Brighton Bluesy is definitely grade 7, 8. And then the new Micro Jazz book, collection collection 5, is again very relevant for own choice as well. So just to sort of restate, but all of this is on your worksheet, hopefully.
Maybe Suna has another question. Was that an
Sooner.
accidental hands up?
Oh no, I was just going to ask a silly question whether I can add him on Facebook because he was talking about Facebook page.
Yeah,
Can we become your friends?
Yes, can we
absolutely.
please be friends on social media?
Yes, I've got Christopher Norton, which I haven't quite figured this out yet. I've got 5,000 friends, so I can't really add any more. But I'm just under 5,000, so you might just slip in there. But that's more of a personal site. But the Christopher Norton Composer, I have teaching videos and student performances and all that kind of thing. So that's a particularly good one, and I don't think there's any limit on the number of people for that.
And Claire's question is, where would you get your connection series from within New Zealand?
Um, I think the easiest way is just to go to 80dayspublishing.com, and it immediately realizes in New Zealand, and it's actually printed in New Zealand and shipped in New Zealand, so it makes it a lot cheaper in terms there's no
Do you know who
postage.
stocks them?
They're also distributed in Australia by Hal Leonard. I think Australia and New Zealand, so you can get them easily from Hal Leonard as well.
Cool. And she gives you the thumbs up.
That's great. And do again look at the YouTube site and subscribe to it. It's free, and also the Facebook page. Again, it's a way of keeping in contact. If you've got any questions about distribution, they're good places to go to. And also for your students or for you to hear the pieces. That's the thing. The new microjazz, all of Connections pretty much, but the new microjazz books are all on YouTube with me playing them. So you can instantly see them and hear them.
And for those who are interested, Christopher Norton also is performing at our Christmas concert for the Facebook page
Yes.
as well. One of his pieces, and a few of my students are playing some of his Christmas works as well. So
And
it's
funny enough, the piece I'm playing is from a book called Carol Jazz, which came out in 1981. So it precedes me being with Boozy and Hawks. It's over 40 years ago that came out.
and to
But
ask
they're
Claire
all
Duff, who
great.
was
They're
actually alive in 1981 in the
Yeah,
room.
that's all right. Thank you. Thank you. One or two of us. That's right.
Well, that's lovely. Thank you very much for giving us the excellent final Zoom of the year. It's such a climax for our year. I've
Thank you.
really enjoyed collaborating with you with for the pedagogy Zooms, and I know that everybody's been so blessed with so many teaching ideas and so much improvisation ideas, and of course just being aware of what pieces you have available for when we have students who wish to go down that
Yeah.
modernish path, which is probably most of them. No matter how much I try and brainwash them to like Renaissance, they they all seem to gravitate towards you, Christopher Norton. So, but on that note, if we would like to unmute, and we'll just give Christopher Norton a round of applause. Thank you very much. And to everybody, I hope you have a wonderful, for those who have school holidays, I guess that's everybody. I hope you have a wonderful break. And we look forward to seeing you in the new year.
Bye for now.
Thank you. Thank you, Christopher.
Thanks for
Thank you.
coming.